I'm going to be talking for about 15 minutes, so not as long as the previous presentation. I'm afraid I don't have as many fancy slides either. That's going to be the completion. My name is Tom Morrissey. I'm a managing director at Goldman Sachs. I'll explain what that is in a minute. We're an investment bank, and we opened an office in Birmingham about a year ago. Just had a 1-year anniversary. I've been at the company since graduation, actually, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my story and how essentially I discovered the relevance of technology and engineering and in finance, because it really wasn't apparent to me at this early stage of my career. And I think that the word investment bank is often difficult to understand. People are not entirely sure what that means. That's true of myself as well. And even more so, it's even less apparent, I think, particularly to the younger generation, why does a bank need so much technology? So we'll talk for about 15 minutes. I'll give you my story and some of the real applications of the skills, and hopefully you get a little bit of a sense. And we've come to Birmingham. This is our first office outside of London, where we've historically been based, and we're really excited. It's gone really well. We've built a decent sized office in the centre of Birmingham. We'll be moving into new premises next year. And we really came here for the talent. Yeah? We really came here for the talent. London is a very established market, lots of sophisticated institutions there, a very deep talent pool, obviously a lot of people in the circuit, but there's not enough talent, actually. So principally we've opened to recruit talent, and we're leading, the office hub is, the Birmingham office is led with technology. The first thing, my background is, as I look at Carl's slide earlier, I hit the Amstrad CPC 464. So the same year, which was probably about 1986, I had the ZX Spectrum 128K, sorry, a bit nerdy. But that was really that was a spark of my interest in computers. A similar situation, my brother gave me his old computer and a book on programming, and that sparked an interest, which led through school. And so when I got to GCSE, I did a mix of subjects, like most students would do. When I got to A level, I chose maths, physics, and geography. Bit of balance of humanities, which is really important, and I'll talk about it. Why. What was really interesting was, I remember one sixth form session, a company came in talking about technology. And it pitched to the whole sixth form, and they were offering basically an internship, and it was an aerospace company. And I was the only one that took an interest. I was the only one that followed up. There was really not much of an awareness, I think, of technology back then. And I think out of 120 students in my sixth form in 1997, I think there were only 2 of us that took computer science. It really wasn't on the radar. I think people had a certain conception of what does technology mean. A very narrow view of software coding. And so that's changed. Through university, the best thing about studying computer science at university, and it's basically software, was how much that was applied in Goldman Sachs and in finance engineering. There's a term, you may notice I keep using the word engineering and not technology. About 10 years ago, we renamed our division to engineering. I always wondered why that was. If you look at the Silicon Valley sectors that sort of really started to balloon up in the early part of the last decade, they never really talked about themselves as having technology departments. And it was engineering, and I like that term because it really emphasizes, to the point earlier about connecting with the business, you're there to solve problems. It's not technology for technology's sake. For technology's sake, there's an application of that. And so I think the nice thing about engineering is, particularly in finance, is there's a lot of mathematics and statistics to it, but it blends the computer science skills with problem solving. And ultimately, that's why we're there. And you see that coming through the business cases. My career actually, so I'm going to talk about how it was used. My career started in 2001. I came out of university. They invited us on the intern program, and there were 3 tiers. You could go in the July, the August, or the September batch. And so, I thought I've just finished formal academia. I'll have a long summer. I'll do the September lot. And so my first day was 3 months of training in New York. My first day in the office was 9/11 on the Tuesday. So we started our training at 8:30, finished it at 9, and then, of course, you know what happened after that. That was my first exposure to engineering because, of course, beyond the tragedy that day, there was huge disruption to South Manhattan. The entire electricity grid was wiped out. So all of the key questions around data centers came into effect. And there was actually another interesting incident, which was a steam pipe, basically, and in New York, there's a sort of superheated steam that runs under, I told you geography was pretty interesting. There's sort of superheated steam under New York, which powers and heats a lot of the buildings. It saves them energy. I think it comes from the subway. So one of those pipes had burst and vaporized, basically, a server room. And so that actually happened the week before. And so there was this really fascinating, first day, there were these mobile air conditioning trucks, supporting the data centers. And that was the first introduction to it. So I always thought it was about software coding. It was really about people, about business continuity, about hardware infrastructure, about connections to the sort of what's going on in the world. I then, we went back to London, and the first project, it was about grammar. So my managers talked about grammar. So why grammar? I'm not doing English. Of course, computer science has a lot of grammar in it. We were developing new programming languages at the time, and so what are the things I think that's not apparent to perhaps students who are taking or thinking about tech skills? They have a very narrow view of what software engineering might mean, and unfortunately, I think that might limit the number of people that really think of it as applicable to them, because it's really fantastically interesting. We developed grammar, and so we were, that was a study in itself. We'd studied a lot of that at university. We then moved on to the financial crisis. I was out in Tokyo at the time, and of course that was a worldwide event, and we saw what happened there in 2008 with the meltdown, and of course that was an incredibly a massive event, essentially needing data really, really quickly, at a pace that we'd never seen. The difference between the Sunday when the Lehman's went bankrupt and the Monday, we were incredibly busy building new solutions, trying to solve problems in literally, minutes rather than hours. In Tokyo, a few years later, we then had the earthquake, and that brought another dimension to the role of engineering in how it fits into a company. As you know, there was the earthquake, a tremendous loss of life in the north because of Japan because of the tidal, the tsunami. But there was also huge disruption to the electricity grid. They had to take a lot of the power stations offline, as you remember. That had an impact on Japan's power availability. Same sort of situation we're thinking about now. They had to, increase the thermal energy. And of course, at the same time, there was a lot of scare about the radiation. And the other thing that happened was the damage to the undersea cables. So I always think how it's interesting how cyclical the news is, because back then I walked into a room and we looked like sort of the Starship Enterprise, the big screen up of sort of seismology of all the eastern sort of continents, and we were looking at all these cables running under the sea between Japan, mainland China. I found out there's a cable that goes up the Suez Canal. Basically, is one of the backbones of the digital connections into London. So, understanding what that meant from a sort of hardware infrastructure, how the cables were severed. One of the major arteries was sort of severed in that earthquake. It knocked out a lot of internet capacity in Japan. That meant latencies increased because traffic was being rerouted. So, in trading applications where latency is really important, we started to see increases there. A lot of work around the planning. And none of this was about software programming, right? This is not my day job. But it's a fantastically interesting area. And then another area that comes in is, again, to the students watching, algebra. We do use that stuff. Y equals mx plus c, right? It turns out to be an incredibly useful technique, particularly when you're doing pricing and you're trying to understand how to price things in the future. Algebra, if you enjoy maths, there's a huge application of mathematics in finance. It's all about optimizations, algorithms, particularly allocation algorithms. You get into linear optimizations. I was okay at maths. I'm really glad I chose geography though, because the seismology and the other bits came in. At university, I chose to do, I did computer science like Carl. A lot of the courses we do at university resonate with my job, whether it's language engineering, network theory, hardware, information security, programming language, grammars, all of those highly applicable in the industry and really, really fascinating and continue to be really interesting today. And the last one, it's really interesting how life repeats itself. We think about gas prices at the moment. Everyone will be acutely aware of energy bills and the price of gas as a commodity has rocketed, as you know, since the events in Europe this year. It's only 2 years ago where gas prices were so low they went negative. If you remember that, when industrial production shut down. And again, really interesting problems for banks, because had you built your pricing models to assume prices go negative? Not necessarily, right? These are really fascinating. Again, financial crisis, 2011, a lot of banks started to pay negative interest rates. I think with mortgage trackers, because the interest rates went so low, there were cases where the rates went low. All of these problems, they come up, they require quick, fast solutions, and it's really about the application of the skills that you've learned to solve these real-world problems. And that's one of the reasons that I've found finance continue to be really, really interesting. There's a great application of maths, and I think one of the most important things to point out these days, as we recruit and building the talent, particularly in the West Midlands, is a lot of the sources of people coming into the industry now is not my background. It's not coming through computer science formally. You don't need to. We have people that, we don't have farmers yet, but maybe soon. We have people that studied many other subjects, economics, history, art, who have had a bit of a career change, maybe in their mid-20s, late 20s. They've gone through sort of boot camps. There's a lot of companies out there that sort of do 2-3 month crash courses to get people pivoting into programming and just the broader fundamentals. And we've had some great success. People have literally only coded for about 3 months. They hit the ground running, and they're deeply involved now with really important functions of the business. And their confidence grows, and they get to sit with other engineers, and they get to absorb all this technological information. And it's a fantastic route to what is a really, really rewarding career. And there's multiple ways to come into the industry. It's one of the things I would emphasize is the problem-solving aspect. Hence the emphasis on engineering rather than tech skills. Not that I'm against the word tech, but it helps to bring together the fact that it connects it to the business imperative. And so with that, I'm going to wrap up because I think I'm about time. But hopefully you got a little bit of insight, less mysterious about exactly what the finance industry looks like. We're really, really excited to be here in the region. We are based in the centre of Birmingham, and so far we've been really, really impressed. And hopefully we can contribute back to the talent pool and help the West Midlands grow the talent pool, as well as playing a big role here. Thanks very much.